Hey everybody, Scout Crafty here again. Mishmash Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. I had a great weekend. I had a great night's sleep last night. Sleep, one of my favorite pastimes. Always has been. You know, some people, they say they only get by with a couple hours sleep. They're fine. I don't know how they do it. Me, I need 8 hours plus every night. And people make fun of me because they say, man, you and your sleep. I love sleep. I love sleep. I love dreaming. Dreaming's one of my favorite things in life. Had a great dream last night about my dad, actually. You know, I wonder if a lot of you, like me, who's lost their parents, do you dream? It's always nice for me to, we call it, have them visit in your dreams. And when my mother or father appear in my dreams, it's always nice because they're always healthy, a little bit younger. You know, when you dream of somebody, are they old, like when they passed away, or are they young? I dream of people, they're usually happy and healthy, not when they got older and maybe sickly. I wonder if you have that same experience in your dreams. And do you enjoy seeing loved ones passed on in your dreams? Because I know I do. It's wonderful. It's like a visit from wherever they are, the afterlife. So that's always fun. And we got a few things to talk about today. Mainly, it was something I wanted to get to a couple weeks ago when we did that thermometer, and coupled with this thing I have to do with my sister. So I think it's going to be a great episode. Let's get right to it. Now, we're going to be tackling this part very soon, you know, and I'm trying to figure out a way to copy this. And it's funny because when I first got this, I of course, the easiest way to do it was to make a mold of this and pour a copy. I used to do a lot of mold making and things like that, so I could make one out of epoxy resin or something like that. But being that this was wood, I want to try and see if I can make it out of a wood first using a duplicator type method. But a couple of people said, what about making a mold? Now, one of the beauties of having a shop, a well-equipped shop, is that you can tackle any job with just the materials you have down here. That's why I'm a big fan of collecting hardware, things like that. But there are so many things that you stock. Like if you need a piece of a rod, you know, of a round steel rod, and you know, what are you going to do? Every time you need something, you're going to run to the hardware store or something. You can't do that. You have to learn to improvise. And that's what I've become really good at, improvising over the years and finding stock in the weirdest places. Now, sometimes you might need a piece of steel rod or a pin or something. That's where a nail will come in handy. Remember, you just cut the tip and the head off a nail, and you got a nice section of 8 inches here of steel rod, which is very nice to use. Sometimes you need some gasket material or anything like that, and an old inner tube. I save all my old inner tubes. This is an old motorcycle inner tube, really good to have. Let me show you something really cool about an inner tube that you can make rubber bands by cutting the inner tube clean. But let me show you how. Here's a good tip that from this inner tube is a much higher quality rubber than if you get like a rubber band. The rubber bands, especially today, they're garbage. I mean, they dry out so quick, they snap. But you take an inner tube here. I'm going to take a piece like this, and I'm just going to cut off a section. Let me just cut a little section off here, like this, using these fantastic shears I have that will cut through anything. Now I have a small little section that I cut off here, right? This band. Now you look at this band. It's strong. It's sturdy. But let me show you what's so great about this band. Last week we were talking about the old Bernzomatic torches here, the ones that you need to strike at a light more or less, and we talked about the strikers. Well, look at this. This is how you never lose your striker. You take an old motorcycle inner tube and you cut off a section, you wrap it around the tank, and you slip your striker in there, and now it's always with the torch. Is that a great idea? You never lose it anymore. You know, you leave these laying around the shop, they get lost. Keep it with the torch wrapped around here. When you need to use it, you just pull it off, put it back. Fantastic little tip. I think I came up with that. You could literally use inner tubes for 100 different things. Next up, these, if you need a source of sheet metal or tin. These tins, when you see these, a lot of times they're thrown out. Now this one here is embossed, so you don't have as much of a material, but here on the bottom, you have a nice section, 12 inches by 8 inches maybe of tin. And you know, it's a great resource for that. And the same thing with these small cans. You know, always save them because you never know when you can use even the bottom. If you need a piece of sheet metal, that's readily available. Next up, we got plastics. Now, you know, there are fence posts. People throw away the sections of fence posts, things like that. This here, you got to remember something. You got a full sheet of polyvinyl chloride here that you could use. You can bend it, mold it. You could straighten it out if you have to. This is a great resource. A lot of times, I had to cut out one time. I was doing a project. I had to cut out a bunch of holes in some PVC, and I saved all the discs. And you say, well, what are you going to... This makes for a great washer. Now, this here is a strong washer. You know, if you need something, especially for wood or something, this is a fantastic washer. So, and as I was drilling out those holes, I saved the discs. You never know when you're going to need them. Another good source of plastic, any kind of bottle that you have. Here, this is, let's see, this is high density polyethylene. And you can see it's written down here what it is. But this is great plastic too that you can use. And again, you got small sections here. The bigger the container, obviously, the more stock that you can get. But these are all resources that you have around the house. The reason I'm talking about this today is because not only to make the mold housing for this, is also because I want to talk about this here. This is high density polystyrene. Okay, when you get this in the supermarkets, you know, this one here held corn muffins, and you can see what it is. And this is basically like it's a vacuum formed plastic. Now, if you go to buy molding materials or vacuum forming materials, it's very expensive. It's not cheap. But you can get parts like here. You look at this container here. Everybody would throw it out. But I have here an 8x8 square inch part of plastic that you cut that out before you toss it away, and you know, you save these sheets, and they come in handy for so many things that you would never even think of, especially if you're doing any kind of restorations or now whatnot. You remember a couple weeks ago we did this nice serviceman from the JP Marsh Corporation thermometer, and now this is a yellowed piece of plastic here. The funny thing is that usually when plastic yellows, it doesn't do it so evenly, and this is such an evenly yellowed plastic that I actually like the look of it. It makes it's a whole different look, and I like it, so that's why I'm not changing it. However, if I had to change it, if I want to change this lens in here, I could use a piece of this high density polystyrene. But the thing is, I would have to get the correct shape. See this here, it's kind of molded, has a shape to it. So that's what we're going to talk about today. How would you do something like that? Now, to mold a piece like this with a lot of intricacies, and you can see here there's a lot of valleys and dips and things like that, you can use a vacuum molding technique with this. And to do that, you would basically need a plate that has a lot of holes in it hooked up to a vacuum. And what you would do is you would heat this up with a heat lamp till it's kind of, you know, it starts to droop. And then you would turn the vacuum on, place this down, and it would suck this down around here, making a female mold of this that you could pour resin or whatever else in. You can also do it with a hot wax or a latex silicone rubber. You can make a rubber mold. That's especially if you're doing multiples, you would want to do it that way. And you could do it there. But if we were making that lens for the a gauge or for that thermometer, if you need a specific size, you could turn it on the lathe, or you could look around for other things that you have, like anytime you need a disc or something, a jar lid. All different shapes and sizes come in handy, especially for vacuum molding. But remember, any of these little details will show up on the mold. So if you wanted a little recess in here, you could use something like this. And but you will have that little lip on there. If you wanted a perfectly round one, you'd have to look for a different jar. Okay, so let's say we want to make this lens, okay, replace it. Now, first thing we'll do is we're going to trace around it, okay? And when we do, we'll transfer the tracing to this here, to this piece of wood. Now we're going to cut this out. Again, it doesn't have to be exact because you always trim the plastic with a scissor later. We straightened out the lines here, and we put 4 dots where we're going to make holes. We're going to drill holes, and then we'll take it over to the scroll saw and cut this out. Okay, now that we drilled the 4 holes, on the back side, we're going to draw an X between those holes, and we're going to use a 2.5-inch Forstner bit to just make a little recess, and I'll show you what that's for later. Okay, see the recess we cut out there? Remember what that's for later. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to pass the blade, and that's what a scroll saw is so nice about. Those little holes, what you do is you loosen up the arm of the blade, and you can pop the blade out of here by pressing it down. And when you take this blade out, you pass it through the hole like this. Okay, you pass this through the hole, reattach the blade, and that's how you start your cut without having to cut from the outside in. Okay, here we go. We made the cuts all the way across, all the around. There's the back. We have a marking arrow to indicate where the square goes, but see how that falls right out? Now here's where we have some fun. We take this over to the lathe, and we're going to try and duplicate this curve. You see that curve there? It's kind of flat in the middle, and then it comes off to the edge. We're going to duplicate. Okay, we're over at the lathe, and this is a wood lathe. This is one of my favorites. You know the story. My mom won some money over at Atlantic City or something, or one of the casinos, and she gave me money to buy this lathe. This is one of my prized possessions. Now, this is the headstock here, and you could put in a variety of accessories into the headstock. In the middle is a Morse taper, which you could put a lot of accessories in. But on the outside, you use what's called a chuck. And we're going to put the chuck on here like this. You just spin it on like that. Very easy to put on. But what's interesting about this chuck, if you look at the jaws of the chuck, it has a slight taper out. And remember we drilled that hole that in the back here. Well, that will put over here. And when we expand the chuck jaws, it'll lock into this groove around here. And that's how we'll be able to hold this as we turn. Now here you can see if we do it this way, it expands it. If we do it this way, it contracts it. So we're going to take this like this, put it over here, holding it flat against here, and keep expanding it until it locks it on. Now that is solid on there, and we could turn it and get that nice curvature on. Okay, this is where the real fun comes in. Now, we have a steady rest that we hooked up here. We tightened it down. And whenever you're going to turn on the lathe, anytime, you want the tool to kind of center. You want it to meet the center here, because if you're too high or too low, it's not going to cut well. And here we have a round scraper. And what we're going to do is remember the center is kind of flat over there. So we're going to start from here and just drag it out a little bit. Now, you turn it on just to make sure that obviously you're not going to hit anything, you could see. And then we adjust our speed from there. This here is just a little bit on the slow side. We're going to bring it up here. This is 800, and this is 500 RPM. This is 815 RPM. Okay, and we'll go just a little bit faster. Here, about 1250. That's 1250 RPM. We're going to touch off here from over the side. It might make a little bit of a chatter because, and we'll straighten it out. We'll come in from here. We'll bring it back. And then now, towards the end, you're going to have what's called an intermittent cut because, you have, you see the corners here. It's going to cut, and then it's going to have airspace, and it's going to cut in airspace. So you're going to hear a little bit of a chatter, but you have to just hold on tight and hang on for the ride. Do it again. Take a look at it. Now you see how we're getting that little bit of a curve? And we'll do that a little bit more, pronounce it a little bit more, but that's what we're doing. Now the beauty of a lathe is you can also sand on the same exact, you could do all your cutting and sanding in the same thing, and just rest over here. We'll sand the edges. We want this a little bit smooth. We're just doing through one grit here. Again, because anything will transfer to the inside of that lens, that any grain that you might have, so... If we really want to do a professional job, we'd polish it, but that's good enough. So now you see what we have. That's the mold. That's the lens mold. We'll put that there, and here's the frame. Okay, so we want to have just a little bit of space here between the gap, because this plastic has to, will have to go between that gap. So what we're going to do is we're going to heat this up and then press it down like this. So we're going to put a little bit of a relief on the inside of here all the way around so that it presses it down, and we're just going to sand a little bit on each edge here. Make the relief on the inside. We're just going to take a nice file, a coarse file, and then come across like this. You see how nice of a relief that makes? A chamfer on the inside, so we're not... it's going to be easier to push that plastic down when it gets warm. So do that all the way around. Okay, here's the game plan now. We chamfered out the inside here. We got that nice and smooth on the outside so that it'll press down. We have a little bit of space, enough space for the thickness of the plastic. We're going to hold the plastic to the bottom here. We're going to heat it up and then press it down. Now, normally they use like a heat lamp or heating coil, but we're going to try the heat gun. And get this nice and hot so it's kind of go, and then press it down and see if we can make a lens. Okay, we used the heat gun, pressed it down, and now look what we have here. A new cover piece. Now we'll just trim the edges off, and I'll show you what it looks like before trimming the edges and cleaning. And there we go. We have a pretty close facsimile of the type of lens you could see here. And you would trim it out, and obviously you would take out the original, trim it out, and press this one in or whatever. Or you can use a better quality plastic. This one here was just something I had on hand, but a little practice session. But just to show you that things around the house can really come in handy to save you. But I actually like this yellowed one. Okay, that was a fun episode. I can't tell you how much enjoyment I get when you can fabricate something by yourself, plus when the materials that you needed to do such a job was around your house that you didn't even know existed. I love, farmers were great for that. They're the best at making things work from things that they have laying around. It was, so I enjoyed this episode. I got some good news for you. Our friend over at Snap Ring Chronicles, I told you about him before. He's having a 500 subscriber giveaway, and he's got some nice stuff. I'm telling you, I entered. I'm not too proud. It's got a nice giveaway he's doing, and he's doing it because he reached 500 subscribers. A lot of you are over there, so stop by. I'm going to put a link to his channel. Stop by, enter the contest. Now, all you have to do is put enter contest in the comment section. And you got to be a subscriber. Cost you nothing. You have a chance to win a beautiful 3-piece Craftsman ratchet set, plus a bunch of other stuff, all useful stuff. I'm telling you, go over there, do it, and you will see it's worth it. It's worth it for what do you got to lose? I mean, you played a lotto, you got 1,000,001 chance to win. You go over here to subscribe and enter the contest. One of you are going to win. Trust me, one of you are going to win. Hopefully it'll be me. Anyway, go check that out. Hope you have a great day. Take care now. Bye-bye.